Tumechaguana kwa njia bora. Naona
This was one of our greatest moments together for change. We celebrated nationally when President Kibaki was elected in 2002.
Government to realize the enormous potential of our country. We invite all those.
But the honeymoon was soon over. We realized the new government was really not new at all. It was mired in the same corruption and tribalism, with the same old group of players at its core. So where did we go wrong? In the 1990s, political leaders and civil society fought hard to get rid of the one-party state. And finally kicked out authoritarian President Daniel Arap Moi. But look where we are now. Power and resources are still concentrated in the hands of a very small group of people. They are getting richer, while Kenya is getting poorer and more divided. Politicians, it seems, can do what they like at our expense. Impunity rules. And Kenyans are still pushing their leaders to stop fighting over positions of power and deliver a much-needed new constitution. I decided to drive as far out of Nairobi as I could and take a look at the Kenya we have. KANU, the Kenya African National Union, the face of the one-party state. The era may be dead, but its disciples and values continue to haunt us. We still have an all-powerful presidency, and we still feel we have no voice in the way the country is run.
It is us, everybody now, to change. To see that what we are trying to do is, like for example, I stayed in down country for quite long.
Down country is?
Huko juu. Unajua sisi hapa tuseme Kenya.
Hapa ni wapi? Isiolo?
Hii ni Isiolo.
Si Kenya hapa?
Hapa si Kenya.
We feel marginalized because there is inequality in distribution of national resource. We don't get what the rest of Kenyans are getting. For example, education.
We don't have even a single tertiary college in our area. A single college. From Moyale,
Teachers College, Polytechnic, no tertiary.
No tertiary education. The only polytechnic is in Isiolo. Leave alone the KRA offices.
MTC?
No. Even the KRA office. Insecurity.
Insecurity.
You know that the government disarms people, not giving guns.
How do we get leaders? If we can't vote, what's the best?
Tulivote, lakini shida ni rigging ilikuwa hapa Isiolo mingi sana.
Rigging? Rigging ilharibu. But voting is good.
Voting is good.
Samburu. This is about as far from the center as it gets and shows us the limits of government. In fact, I see no sign of government at all. This is my first time in these areas, and I've gotten a new understanding of what marginalization means. The government doesn't reach here unless it's with guns and in camouflage. People don't get even the most basic services. In fact, I would call this abandonment, not marginalization. And the roads are awful. Aha! At last, a good road. But even this shows how absent policy is, how unthinking and uncaring government can be. Because the water used by the construction company is needed to keep people and animals alive in this terrible drought. Zimeshiba maji? Zimeshiba kidogo tu lakini bado. Na kesho utaleta hapa?
Hapana, itachika siku nyingine.
bila maji. Na zikikufa sasa tufanye nini? Even the survival is done in turns. You bring your goats, you bring your animals to drink in turns. You bring animals to drink in turns. In between, who knows? Life on the margins. And it doesn't seem to be difficult. All you need is a truck to bring water. The river is maybe 20 kilometers down. Bring a truck every day in different places and people have water. The animals have water. It doesn't seem to be very difficult. Why isn't it not being done? Mumekataa kwa barabara?
Sisi nimekuataa kwa barabara.
Nasema hakuna gari itapitia.
Hakuna gari itachukua hii mchanga, hakuna anachukua maji.
Lazima lete
talete maji.
Ndivyo ilianza?
Sisi nasema kuna gari inapitia hapa.
Ni nguvu yenu. Mmefanya vizuri. Ni mzuri, si ndio? The government really doesn't seem to bother here. It's happy to hand over to NGOs and religious organizations. Here, the Kenya Red Cross is buying weak animals, and the meat goes to the most needy families. Enda haraka hiyo. Haya, poleni sana
ما انت واخد لك ده كمان شو واخد لك ولا انا
na kuhusu mambo ya slaughterhouse, serikali iweke slaughterhouse hapa.
Nataka sana nasema.
Adona.
Nataka.
Na makazi.
Ndio sasa leo
tutafutia kuni kidogo. Hakuna kazi nyingine tuko naye.
Kwa sababu ya ukame.
Kwa sababu ya ukame.
mimi kandarasi hadi mele.
Hakuna kandarasi yote mahali mtu anaweza kuandika sisi tupate income, hakuna.
Hardly surprising in this area that people are not sure they are Kenyan citizens. Hello, Minister for Water. Hello, Minister for Roads. Hello, Minister for Health. Hello, Mr. President. Anybody there? Things haven't really changed here for over 40 years. This is as remote as you can get. This was the choice of the colonial government to remove Kenyatta from Kenya. And nothing much has really changed since then. This area is still as remote as it ever was.
So they removed him from Lodwar.
Jomo Kenyatta was being prepared for release to be the president of an independent Kenya.
Kenyatta was brought here to prepare for what he was fighting for, freedom. So when Kenyatta was brought here, they know already Kenyatta is going to be a president.
Colonialism is responsible for many of our problems in this country. Bad laws, poor institutions, unequal development. But nearly half a century later, if we really want to change, can we keep blaming colonialism for everything?
Now, it only remains for me to present to you, Mr. Prime Minister, these constitutional...
There were high hopes and aspirations pinned on our first president, which were later dashed. It started a cycle of disappointment with our leaders that continues today. And many of the ills that are destroying our nation started here. Stealing among the political class, grabbing land and resources from ordinary people. Kenyatta Day in Mombasa. We like to celebrate it as a day of heroism and national identity. But do we think what it means as Kenyan citizens? What have we gained since independence? It's holiday mood on the only public beach around here. Let's ask people what they think.
Vile nauliza, umeona mabadiliko gani hapa Kenya kama miaka 20 imepita? Unaona mabadiliko, si tuko sasa tuko na coalition government, tumeenda kutoka one party state. Haijakufikia?
Saa hii tunapumua
kidemokrasia.
Ni
kupumua
kidemokrasia lakini
ni mambo ya dunia mzima, si Kenya peke yake kuna njaa.
Demokrasi ambayo tuko nayo sasa si demokrasi. Hii ambayo tuko nayo sasa ni kuoneana. Kwa sababu tukisema demokrasia ni wakati ya kuwa mtu akwe na free, hata rais akiwa amefanya makosa aweze kuhukumiwa. Ama mkubwa yoyote mwenye makosa aweze kuhukumiwa. Lakini hii serikali yetu imekuwa yale wenye makosa wote wanawekwa kando. Lakini mimi mnyonge nikifanywa makosa sasa hivi nitahukumiwa.
These complaints have become a daily chorus, but we seem to be waiting for someone else to do something about it. Why? Making change is sometimes a lot easier than we think, as I witnessed on the same beach the very next day. This land is public land, but is being built on by a private developer. By the time I arrived to see the action, so had the police. There is fear of the police these days, just like the dark old days of the one-party state. They seem to operate a shoot-to-kill policy, especially in poor areas. And they act as if they're not accountable to anyone, anywhere.
Why don't you go with your name tag?
I don't have a name tag.
Every police officer has a name tag.
Every police officer has
except you.
a name tag.
But you don't have one?
Not except
I'm noticing that none of your officers have name tags on them.
You see
is that normal procedure?
It is normal.
That when you operate...
It is normal. You will do this. You will go to the OCPD, you will ask him and they will answer you.
But you're not allowed to answer me that question.
I'm not allowed to answer you.
Because it is interesting because normally when I see you on the streets, you have the name tag and the number, but when you come here, you don't have them. Why is that?
You will ask the OCPD.
Isn't that going to be difficult for Kenyans? Because we would like to know who is responsible for something if something went wrong.
After chatting to the police, I went to find the beach operators who helped bring down the wall.
Wewe chama gani?
Mimi ni boat.
Boat.
Si ni salesman. Si salesman, kazi yetu ni kuchukua, kutafuta mtu.
Wewe ni broker?
Sasa ni salesman, sio broker. Broker ni jina mbaya. Ni salesman. Sasa mimi ni salesman. Sasa mimi ni kutafuta ule mzungu pale kwa beach.
Sio broker.
Mimi ni salesman. Ama mimi.
We decided as a group, as people work here, we're going to bring it down ourselves because it's us who have been here and who deserve to be given those pieces of land.
Did you have any fear about doing it?
No, we didn't have any fear because we feel that it's our property and we have the right to fight for it.
Sasa mimi maoni yangu ni hivi bwana. Mimi kitu kinachoshangaza kama kijana Mkenya. Mimi nashangaa yani mali ya umma badala hata ichukuliwe na raia walio maskini, wale wadosi waliojaa vitambi na pesa zao ndio wanajenga tena unafiki na roho mbaya na kunywa tunyanyasa. Mimi sijaona raia akitetewa na AP, lakini naona AP wakitetea wale waizi wakubwa. Ni serikali inatetea watu wa kina nani?
Kenya ishauzwa lakini kuambiwa ndio hatujaambiwa, lakini Kenya ishauzwa.
Kenya ishauzwa
kabisa.
Mko na complaints nyingi sana. Sema serikali ovyo hii. Lakini mnafanya nini kurekebisha hiyo mambo?
Kwa vile kutokea miaka mingi tulikuwa hatujui mambo mengi. Lakini kwa saa hii tumekuwa kama vijana, tukiona jambo kama ndio tunaamua tubomoe, tuonyeshe action ya kwamba vijana sasa hivi tukumeamua na tuko na umoja fulani.
Na mambo ya kura?
Mambo ya kura hatuoni kama raundi hii tutapigia yote yule. Manake walioko mimi reason moja ambayo nasema sipigii mtu kwa sababu wale wote tunawapigia ni wale wamekaa kwa bunge zaidi ya miaka hata 20 ama 40 ama 60.
Is this ndio adui au enemies? Kwa sababu kuna hii mambo inaenda waves. Watu wanapiga kura kwa wave. Wanasema leo ni ODM wave. Hujali nani unaweka kura.
Unapiga.
Ama ni PNU wave, unajali uangalie mtu unaweka kura. Ukabila imezidi. Mtu anasema mimi Jaluo napigia Mjaluo. Mimi Kikuyu napigia Mkikuyu. Hiyo ni sisi. Sio hawa.
These people, they don't change. Ni tangu Kenyatta government. Till right now, they are still in the government.
Ulipigia kura kwa nini?
So, mimi nilikuwa napiga kura. I thought there was change.
Materi tulichoma pale barabarani. Action hiyo tulimuonyesha na alitulia.
Sasa serikali hapa ikija ije vizuri.
Sasa kabisa kwa sababu sisi tumejihami, tumechoka na maisha kabisa vijana.
Hussein Khalif, director of Muslims for Human Rights, Muhuri, organized the beach action.
We went to the local authorities and told them to stop the construction. They did nothing. We went to the land's office. They did nothing. We went to the police. They didn't do anything. So we said, if governments and government machineries have failed to do what they are supposed to do, then the onus is on us now as private citizens to enforce the law, and as provided for in certain sections of the Criminal Procedure Code.
There is a sense that that if you look back at the 90s especially, where there was a lot more activism and direct action, that your generation of leadership, particularly in civil society, not played its part in direct action. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that totally. I think currently there is some laxity or fear within the civil society. Mass action, civil strife, this is what actually brought us the much needed democracy that we're enjoying right now. What we are doing now is actually going back to those dark days. And it's about time that we realize this and make that paradigm shift towards action as opposed to just sitting in meetings and doing reports. I think one key area that we need to focus on is how to move things away from Nairobi. I think that's a very, very big problem, to have everything concentrated on Nairobi. 1992, when we repealed the Section 2A, I think that's when we began the process of transitioning, if there is such a word, from autocracy to democracy. But mostly this has been in writing, in the laws, and in awareness. But when it came to the actual tangible democratic principles, those were non-existent. Democracy is for Kibaki and Raila, that they can meet and agree to share power. That's democracy for leaders. We want democracy for the people, not for leaders.
Prison Governor Wanini Kereri has a different story. She brings change by being creative within a very controlled and regulated structure.
I went to Shimolatewa in the year 2006. And when I was appointed as the officer in charge, and I was going to be the first woman to manage a maximum male institution, I want to say that I was shocked. And I want to say something about the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and the civil society in general, because they were very, very harsh and thorough with us. We were treating the inmates badly. And I want to say today that for sure we did treat them badly.
That's certainly a challenge, bringing change within the prison system. In most Kenyan prisons, you're not even treated like a human being, let alone a citizen. So this is the Shimolatewa prison. I've heard lots of bad things about it in the past, and they say now that things have changed. Let's try and see. Mama, are things different? Vile umeona? You've been here how many years, you said?
10 years.
10 years. In Shimo?
Yeah, in Shimolatewa.
How are things when you look at the prison from the time you came?
There's a big difference.
When did it change?
Because since I came here, people were being harassed, being beaten, and there were no enough food. Also, there wasn't any, school.
What are the major changes that you saw, that you have seen in this prison since Madam Wanini came?
The progress of school first.
Kwanza ni masomo?
Yes, masomo. Alafu akaja changes kuwa close na officers, because since then askari alikuwa hauruhusiwi kuwa na mfungwa.
Unasema before that the warders and prisoners were not communicating?
Were not.
Yeye akaanza akasema nini?
Akasema kwamba sasa mimi ni mtu wa human rights na hakuna mfungwa kupigwa, akiwa na shida yake lazima present kwa ofisa yoyote, na kama it is above you iletwe kwangu.
I was very shocked
with the state of cleanliness. It was very, very dirty. So I dealt with, for the first 3 months, I dealt a lot with that. And I agonized. I did agonize. And of course, like any human being and being a woman, I would feel scared. Yeah, I would feel scared. And I remember I used to walk in like with 10 guards. They used to escort me. 10 guards, wherever I went. And I didn't even do much talking to anybody. The prisoners had a lot. So I just listened to anybody who talked to me, listened. And I said, okay, since I had already done a lot of reforms in Langata, then let me just replicate. It was much easier now to start replicating. So I began with the simplest that didn't cost me anything, so let's clean. Let's clean the prison, let's clean ourselves. Then I could say now the changes came in, like I said, no caning. If you're beating prisoners, no more beating of prisoners. Let's use the rules, let's use the regulations. You can put them in the cells, you go through the orderly room proceedings for inmates. I mean, the processes are there to punish a prisoner who has gone against the prison discipline. So, of course, the staff also were not very amused by that, because how do we work without the cane? Because they were used to that cane. So that's a bit of resistance from the staff. But I told them, let's just use the normal processes of punishing inmates or of telling them that you've done wrong. And then I noticed the best way of disciplining inmates, bring in a lot of privileges. Then when things go wrong, you with the sanctions now. You withdraw, you withdraw, you withdraw.
It's a very good lesson to us all that anyone can be an agent of change, even prisoners, if given a chance. What did you do before you came to jail? What were you doing?
Before coming to prison, I was a Mason.
But now you feel you can now give advice?
Yeah, I can give a lot of advice, in fact, concerning legal issues.
How did that happen?
Because when she came, we were having problems concerning legal issues. So it's when we raised them to her, and she communicated to Kituo cha Sheria. And 30 of us were trained. Yeah.
And then what happened?
Since then, we have been seeing things are going well on the side of the appeals, because we normally assist them on issues of the procedures of the court from the trial, giving them legal advice, assisting in writing written submissions, because majority of them are not represented.
So where do you get the material for research?
Yes, we are being assisted by the Kituo cha Sheria. They do give us some authorities. Yeah, and the legal idea they gave us.
Do you have lawyers who help you?
No.
So it's just yourselves?
Yeah.
So you're like a lawyer now?
Yeah, I am a lawyer, because I'm very much conversant with legal issues.
This is a very interesting project, because it gives inmates and prison warders a chance to represent people who are in remand or seeking appeals. Since it started in 2007, of the 30 people who were trained, now 23 represented themselves in appeals and are out. What we need to do to institutionalize this so that we can move up to a point where after Wanini, no matter who comes in here to Shimo, the basic high standard has been set.
I should be able to come up with a booklet on best practices, which I can do. But even if I do it, how many people are going to appreciate it? Somebody's got to come from the system, minor, not you from the outside, from the system, and say, I think what Wanini is doing, and some other few officers, it's not only me alone. You know, let them sit together and come up with the best practices. Let's put officers together, even if it's on a workshop or a seminar or whatever. Let people be taken through the best practices. And they are so simple. And some of them don't require much funding. They don't require much funding.
Your success is also, it's got a weakness in the sense that the Kenya government is issues around reform and the conditions in the jails are raised. They point to Shimo and say, but look at Shimo. It's a success. Well. So they don't. So they end up using you as a fig leaf to hide everything else. How do you feel about that?
I feel bad. I feel very, very bad about it. I feel very, very bad. And I have seen them ride on my concepts. I've seen the minor ride on those concepts. And people have never told you, Wanini, you've done a great job. No, at the end of the day, mine is what I offer to the inmate. Because if I start feeling bad on the other side about the system and about officers who don't like what I do, I think it will kill my morale. So I don't. I just give all that I can to the inmates.
I think that's what makes my day.
I decided to pay a visit to Khelef Khalifa, veteran activist and human rights defender who lives just down the road. He's worked with Wanini to help give the prisoners access to human rights organizations. But Khelef thinks it's going to take a lot more than change from the inside to get Kenya on track.
2002, that was the time many people, including myself, I had a hope that this country is going to change. Because for the first time, all tribes, they relied on one president, okay? But the biggest problem that Kibaki administration did, instead of opening it up and stop this tribalism, he perpetuated this tribalism even further. So to me, if you ask me, between these three presidents, I'm telling you, Kibaki is the worst president because Kibaki had an opportunity to change, but he refused. We need to get fresh people, people who are never served in these three governments, first and foremost. Completely new. New thinking, new ideas. You see, when Obama came to power, the Republicans thought by pointing fingers at his inexperience, that inexperience, America says, wait a minute, we need a change. Probably this guy will give us a change. I think this is the time where I want donors to understand. In as much as they praise this country, in as much as they put all these billions, where does that money go? You see, if the basic right, food, that Kenyans cannot enjoy, that food, so where does that money go?
What donors will argue, perhaps, is say that, look, if we pull out of Kenya, the 10 million people who are hungry will die. Will the government shift resources to the poor or not?
Yeah, but they're not solving the problem. The problem is still there. You see, the problem is still there. What we want to do, we want to put a stop. You see, we want to put a stop and at least giving some hope. That hope for many, many Kenyans is not there. Because today, if you go to a street and ask people, is there any change? They say, hakuna.
People are here to talk about change in Kenya, for better or for worse, and to think seriously about the next steps. You too should think about it. It's your future and it's your country. But let's go in and see what's going on. Thank you. This conference is about change in Kenya. Many here struggled on the streets for democracy, but feel they didn't get what they expected or deserved.
It's too wide for it to close. The momentum that brought people together needs to come back again so that we all have a common goal.
But for now, let us concentrate on this very crucial process of reforms.
When in government, I spoke about extrajudicial killings long before it got to the public domain. Because as a minister, you speak publicly when you've had it up to here.
To build a political movement that is based on ideology, you must do political education.
In 2002, a lot of the reformers had one strategy that we thought would work. Reformers could work in government and actually take it over from within. But the moment they got in, I don't want to blame them because I think if I got in myself, probably I would have been eaten up. For me, one thing I won't repeat is basically adopt that principle of thinking that you can make alliances with people or organizations that have a different ideology, different politics.
It was important to empower the people. People had become very disillusioned with politics. They had been marginalized. They had lost confidence in public institutions. It also led to an understanding of the enormous diversity of our country, the fate of the marginalized communities, the discrimination against Muslims, against pastoral communities, and to think of ways in which this diversity could be made into a positive rather than a negative dimension of our public life.
Because very much in the public mind, this idea has taken hold that civil society is dead and has been dead since 2002. And I think we heard even this morning when the Minister of Justice was talking about impetus. when we know that it has been part of our work for decades to struggle for reform, not just in the East, but elsewhere.
The backdrop to the conference is a photographic reminder of how things did go wrong, very wrong, around the disputed 2007 presidential election. I took a break outside with a photographer, Boniface Mwangi. What has been the impact of your work? How do you feel about this country and where we are going?
I don't look at the pictures. It's traumatizing. So I try and talk about it. I try and see how I can try and help people about it. I try to see as many people as possible can see the pictures and we can learn from that and never do that again. That even if down the line we have a disputed election, you should not kill each other.
What did the experience teach you about Kenya?
Bad leadership can destroy a country. We pretend that everything is normal, but it's not normal. People have issues, people are hurting, people are suffered, there's inequality, injustice, and the government is not addressing that.
You're very frustrated.
I'm frustrated.
You're angry.
Angry and bitter about the government because I've seen people suffer because of what they failed to do. The government failed to protect the citizens.
So nothing really has changed because this has been the whole issue in this country since fight for independence, after independence. The whole struggle for change seems to have been very violent. People have...
Yeah. The people who are involved, the people that I used to admire when I was growing up in the civil society movement are the guys who are actually oppressing us.
And what did happen to the political reformists? I talked to James Orengo, now a minister in the coalition government. I asked him if action in the 1990s had brought any real change.
I don't think we have achieved a change. We're still in the process of struggle because there may be a false sense of confidence and we may be easily thrown back to the old imperial presidency.
Why didn't you guys take up the leadership? Why did you cede it to the old Turks?
One of the reasons was a feeling of inadequacy. I must confess that people thought that, in order to intensify the struggle, we needed some of these nationalists or leadership from various communities and various regions in the country with whom the local communities would identify with. There was also the question, which was a matter of practice, that it would have been very easy for Moi to round up, even the very first day, for Moi to round up, the entire 7 or 11 members of the Young Turks. We thought it was a tactical move. We thought that we will never surrender the movement, that these former leaders would not really, hijack the movement. But it didn't take 2, 3, 4 months before some of them started referring to us as backroom boys.
Orengo was one of the original Young Turks in the 1990s, a group of lawyers and activists who challenged the one-party state on the street and in the courts. This was when the winds of change were sweeping the world, the Soviet bloc collapsed, and democracy was on the rise. The Young Turks in Kenya set up the first opposition party, Ford, and enjoyed massive popular support. But things started to go wrong in the scramble to set up a winning team. If you had a chance to do it back, what would you do? What would you do differently? And
what I would do...
What are the mistakes you've made and regret?
The first mistake, and the thing that comes to my mind many times, is that when Ford was formed and it was legalized, Wangari Maathai said, the leadership of Ford and the membership should be restricted so that it should be a political movement for reformers and for reform. But I think opportunistic elements came in, and Ford became, a ship for everybody.
Nobel Peace Laureate, environmentalist Professor Wangari Maathai, seen here protesting with the mothers of political prisoners in 1992. This was before President Moi bowed to internal and external pressure. Political opponents and demonstrators were treated harshly. Those detained without trial were yet to be released. This is when pushing for change means putting your life on the line. You don't see yourself as a sellout by being in government?
I don't see myself as a sellout. At any fora or any meetings that we have in government, I'm very clear about my position on any issue and the position of the reform movement in the country. But I must be realistic that in the previous years, the way people struggle for change were different. In the old days, we used to do political works in terms of pieces in magazines, in pamphlets, have political education meetings and all that. And we had a tool that the government found very difficult to fight with. But now, if you look at those who are controlling the media, there are people who are not quite pro-change, and that makes our work a lot more difficult.
Would you be willing to go back to the streets?
Tomorrow, today, if I felt it was the only way. But we should not forget that even the arrangement that has resulted in the accord was through protest, it was through demonstrations. You seem to talk about this as if it was a long time ago, but we were shot at by the police many times as we were carrying out these demonstrations. And I think in any democracy, protest demonstrations, they are part and parcel of the package of human rights, which enables people to stand up to be counted when things go wrong.
These increased freedoms have allowed individuals to take initiatives, like Parliamentary Speaker Honorable Kenneth Marende. What is wrong with us?
What is wrong with us is that I think we made a false start. Yeah, at independence, the people that we had in politics, who unfortunately continue to linger on up to this day, perceived the politics and positions of leadership as places of opulence and influence. We took over the political leadership of this country and wanted to live like the governors live. And so the focus is not right. We didn't understand that we have a priority to make this nation productive. We have moved to cover the proceedings of Parliament on television and radio, so that is a completely new introduction.
Chapter 100 of the laws of
Kenneth Marende was elected Speaker during the height of the violence in the election crisis and has been doing a difficult balancing act ever since between the two sides of the coalition, in a parliament otherwise seen as self-serving and greedy.
Yes, I was under a lot of pressure to agree with the position that my party was taking. I was under a lot of pressure also to agree with the position of the executive that time, led by His Excellency the President. But I found safety in the law.
He's one of the few who has provided real leadership in his decision-making. We can look back in history. We know some of the mistakes that were made, but it's clear what our biggest challenge is now. Has loyalty to our ethnic communities, this speaking with one voice, become more important to us than being a Kenyan citizen? It certainly seems so. This threatens the very meaning of nation. Our country is dangerously divided. What are we doing about it? Our political leaders find it easiest to use ethnicity, not ideas, to seize power and hold on to it. But that's what they want. Why do we help them do it? What's worse is that when we do try to express our wishes, they are ignored and manipulated. Electioneering, from start to finish, has become a violent battleground for politicians. not a chance for us to have our say. It looks a frightening and divided future, and it's been left mostly up to us, Kenyan citizens, to deal with it. It takes enormous individual effort to do the right thing within systems that are so often wrong.
So you'll stay for the conference?
Like my friend Jefferson Lekupe, who I met in Maralal. He is now in Nairobi for the conference.
People have been saying the communities are marginalized. The communities are vulnerable. I mean, those are the words used. And one of the persons said that. And to me, I thought that person hit the point. I mean, it hit a nail on the head. I still think I'm a certain level that I don't feel I am full a citizen of this country.
And what about people in Samburu? Do you think they feel first they're Kenyans or?
No, they aren't Kenyans at all. They don't feel that because of what the government has done to them. I mean, they feel little about the government. Yeah. And that really leaves them within their cocoons of thinking that the Samburus and nothing more than that.
Do you have your ID today?
Oh, yes, I do.
Can I see it?
Oh, yes.
Does it say whether you're Samburu or Kenya?
Yeah, no, I'm a Kenyan. That's what the ID says. But these are all, I mean, these are documents that at one point.
And your ID here says, it doesn't say what ethnic group you are.
It does say, but
it says district.
The district is Samburu.
Uh-huh. You grew up. You were born here.
Yeah, I was born here. All my life was around in this place.
Yeah. You were born with club feet.
Yeah, club feet. My dad used to carry me sometimes to school, but like when I was around 8, I think, this time I was like very aggressive. Now I can walk, I can run, I can do anything with my children, and I was playing football. I mean, the small ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like anybody else.
Like
there was no difference.
It's no difference. The aspect was.
Now you came from here. You went to school, ended up going to film school. You decided to come back. You know, people with your talents, your skills, generally go to Nairobi and they set up there, they work for all kinds of things.
In fact, I have a reason to come back to this community. These people, I thought they are marginalized, and even the media itself has marginalized this community further. Much of what's happening in the northern part of this country is not much highlighted. And that's why I thought maybe I'll come back, do much in these communities. That's Turkana, Samburu, Rendile, and Pokot. I was trying to integrate them in a way, in the media. Because that's when the time I can tell the reality.
We have to make the effort. We have to challenge ourselves, because it's left mostly up to us, Kenyan citizens, to deal with the mess we are in. Gonjiri Wambogo from Kikuyus for Change was concerned about the way hatred and tribalism was being expressed on the internet. New technology has had a huge impact. He explained to me why he felt the need to set up an internet discussion forum.
Kikuyus for Change started in 2008, in April, and it started as a reaction, for lack of another word, as a reaction to the anti-Kikuyu sentiment that seemed to have developed from 2007 December, 2008 January and February. Our generation felt that, one, we didn't understand how we got to be in that position. We, within ourselves, felt that we had not done anything to other communities on a community basis that would make them have the amount of animosity that they showed. And we wanted to understand, so how did we get to this point? And some of the older folks were willing to have that conversation until the accord was signed. When the accord was signed, the conversation got finished. And I remember asking one of the older gentlemen we'd been working with and asking him, so this conversation we had begun about trying to analyze and see what we need to do different. And he told me, no, young man, we've gotten saved. This accord has saved us as a community and given us an opportunity to circle our wagons and ensure that we are never that vulnerable again. And we felt, no, that can't be the right way to do this. I mean, they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's what we've always done as a community. We've always circled the wagons every time there's a threat to an individual or to a group within our community. And we felt, if that's what we've always done, and if we continue doing it, we'll have 2007 again. The very first thing we did in April, after we said this was the way to go, was to put up a website. So a few of us raised some money, put up a website. And in that website, we just started posting thoughts. What I know is that through the internet, you can actually influence change, because change has to happen out
out there, not on the internet. And a friend of mine kept saying that there's some people who think they're going to overturn the government on the internet, and they act as if they have already done it. They give themselves ministerial positions and everything. That's one extreme. The other side of that coin is that you can actually have constituencies start forming around issues because the issues were raised on the internet. Just talking on the internet is not going to be enough. You have to talk on the internet and then go out there and implement what you've talked about. If you don't do that, then we're going to be talking till the cows come home.
But there are a lot of people in the country who don't have access to new technology. In fact, there are a lot of people in the country who don't even have access to clean water and a toilet. And we don't have to go very far to see them. Mukuru Kayaba is just round the corner from the conference at the Hilton Hotel. If we're talking about how far we have to go, this says it all. Believe it or not, this is a river. This is unbelievable. At this day and at this time, the fact that something like this exists in this country is something we must consider when we're looking at change.
Serikali tunaijulia kwa TV na radio.
Mabadiliko ya aina gani hebu?
Lakini unajua shida moja inaletwa na matajiri. Hata ukiangalia makaratasi mingi ni za taski, uchumi na kumat. Alafu tena kuna hizi cox. Hapa hakuna factory kwa kijiji. Tena hata kuna mahali inamwago kwa daraja kutoka river bank.
Hatua gani nyinyi mmechukua niwauliza?
Sasa tukijaribu kuongea sasa sisi ni wanyonge, hatuna haki.
Hakuna watu wanakuja kusaidia nyinyi watu wa haki za
binadamu.
Nani
sasa?
Wewe umeishi hapa miaka ngapi?
Mimi?
Hapa.
Hapa.
Nyumba yako iko?
Hii ni nyumba lakini hii inaongeza.
Ukajenga mwenyewe?
Ukajenga.
Hii chafu ilikuwa hapo ilipofika hapa 63.
Chafu ilikuwa hapa siku nyingi lakini mvua ikanyesha ikaenda nazo. Lakini leo ikakoa nyingi kwa maana maroli manakuja hapa makaweka. Gamolisa sasa mnaweka makajulisha. Sasa mama ni hapa unalala.
Umeambia polisi habari kuhusu hii mambo?
Polisi ga.
Na chief.
Watu ni kukula.
Ndio.
Watu ni kukula manakula sisi. Makapanda ngoroba makarara. Alafu sisi tulale kwa maji.
So what do we do about these huge and cruel divisions in our society? Because if we don't do something, we will all pay the price. I'm sure by now you're wondering about my role in all of this. Actually, I was created by Gado, the satirical cartoonist, because there are many ways of getting a message across. Gado helped reduce the culture of fear and personality cults by laughing at our leaders and making them human. He is one of our sharpest political analysts, and as a Tanzanian, can take an objective look at us all.
The role of a cartoonist is to comment negatively so as to bring positive results. That's the idea. Here what you're doing is raise questions. And in doing so, you are doing so by laughing at people, by pointing at people, and by raising issues which other people are afraid to say. In a way, you have a license to offend politicians, leaders, and the public itself. And so that, in many ways, tends to create some sort of love-hate relation with the public, with the politician. But as I said, I think you have a license to do that. By doing so, you want to effect positive change. Sometimes, even as an editorial cartoonist, I'm brutal. I mean, because my concern is not really to make people laugh, but probably for people to have thoughtful smiles, for people to think, for people to provoke some sort of reaction.
Well, it's been a long journey for all of us. We have made some progress. We have won some freedoms. But now we need to harness these gains and move decisively on. Kenyans have invested heavily in change. And now, we have another moment, another great opportunity for change. which direction are you going to take? So this is the sign of the future. This is the future. This is the future.